The NFL draft is quickly approaching, and on today's episode of Chicago Bears Now, got to go a little negative Nancy here. Not trying to, but the Bears are doing this. They're analyzing every scenario out there. Good scenarios, bad scenarios, trading up, trading back. I'm going to outline the worst case scenario for the Bears in round one based on the 9 players that could go ahead of them. And what would the Bears do if this plays out? And by the way, let me know in the chat, do you want a best case scenario video? Because we could also run that exercise. If we get 1,500 likes on today's show, we'll run a best case scenario video as well. Okay, let's run through it here. So top 5 picks. Worst case for the Bears mock draft. I'm not going to, worst case would be no QBs going the top 9, but there's got to be some realistic here. Cam Ward is going number 1. Even if he doesn't, he'll go in the top 9. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, really regardless of order, 2 and 3 there. Will Campbell goes 4 to the Patriots. Mason Graham goes 5 to the Jags. And then when you expand 6 through 10, Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders, obviously, which would be a bit of a doom for the Bears. Armin Mimbu goes to the Jets. They need a right tackle. Mike Green, who I think is the second best edge rusher in this draft, could go to the Panthers. I think that's a really good scheme fit for him as well. And then Tyler Warren, kind of the final domino in this worst-case scenario mock draft, goes 9 to the Saints. So in other words, Shedeur Sanders doesn't go in the top 9, which there could be a benefit of that. Maybe a team calls the Bears at 10 and gives you a decent offer, which we talked about that on a prior episode. But let's face it, this is a bad scenario if this plays out. I don't love really any player left at 10. There's a lot of players I really like, just not at 10 in this scenario. Like, we've kind of outlined the players I would really like to get at number 10. Now, there's a few guys based on needs, if you really needed exposition, that I would like to take at 10, like Will Johnson or Tetairoa McMillan, who are players we could still consider in this scenario if they fall to 10, but those are down the list of needs for the Bears, obviously. So you're trying to combine BPA and need. And to me, all the guys I really like at 10 that fit that combination nicely, like Jeanty and Warren and Mimbu and Campbell and even Mike Green, Mason Grant, like they're all gone. They're all off the board in this scenario. And while it's a long shot and you would expect one of those chunk of 5 or 6 players to fall to 10, there is a scenario where this does come into play. Now, for me, I would be doing everything I could to trade down if I was Ryan Poles, if this scenario plays out. Because, again, I don't love the options at number 10 in this hypothetical. I'd be trying to trade down. But again, if the Bears don't love the options at 10 here, who's coming to trade up? Again, maybe that's someone for Shedeur Sanders. Maybe someone loves Tetairoa McMillan or something like that, or Omarion Hampton. So there are players that could get traded up for, but that's not a guarantee. There's never a guarantee that you can find a trade, especially on draft night when you have 7 minutes on the clock. So I promise you the Bears are running these scenarios. They're working through these exercises and trying to figure out what would be our best option if this thing played out. And you guys let me know in this scenario, by the way, and we'll put it back on screen for you guys. Who would you draft at 10 in this scenario? Who would it be? If you can't trade down, who would you take at number 10? Because I'm going to go through 5 players here that I would consider taking, assuming I couldn't find a trade. Omarion Hampton. Look, I think it's a little rich to take him at 10, but I do think Ben Johnson wants to find a difference maker in the backfield. I think Omarion Hampton is the clear RB2 in this draft behind Ashton Jeanty. 2 straight incredibly productive seasons, one with an elite passing game and quarterback in Drake May in 2023, but even more impressively last year when they did not have a good passing attack and he was even more productive. They even leaned on him more and he delivered not just the volume stats, but the efficiency as well. So I think you have 2 years of excellent tape and production from Hampton. I think he is a lock to go in the first round. His floor is probably the Steelers at 21 because you think of the teams after the Bears at 10 that would consider taking him. I think Dallas at 12. I think a team like Denver at 20, Pittsburgh at 21. I think a few teams would consider trading up to get ahead of Denver at 20 to try and draft him. So there are teams that will take him in the first round. I think it's safe to say at this point he is going to go in the first round. He could go in the top half of the first round. So again, I don't love it at 10, but like if they get into a situation where they can't find a trade down and all their top blue chippers are gone, this isn't a bad outcome if the Bears went this route. How would you grade a Hampton pick at number 10? A, B, C, D, or F? I'd give it like a C plus based on value, but again, you can only control so much. It would still be a passing grade for me. It would fill a clear need. He's an upgrade from Swift, and I think it's a good 1-2 punch with Swift. I would just prefer it if it was in a trade down scenario. Okay, Will Johnson. I really like Will Johnson. I think this would probably be a BPA pick where it's like, do we really need a corner? No. Do we want to punt on Tyreek Stevenson? I don't want to, but he's a better prospect than Tyreek Stevenson. He'd probably be better if they played a game today than Tyreek Stevenson, even though, again, I've made my intentions clear. I want to give Tyreek this year with this new staff with Al Harris to see if they can get the most out of his skill set, because I think he's really talented. But in this scenario, it's like, well, our top guys that fill our biggest needs are gone. Will Johnson is a fringe top 10 player in this draft. Be kind of hard to argue with it. Now, you'd probably dangle out Tyreek for a trade if you draft him, because Jalen Johnson, Will Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Terrell Smith, that's a bit redundant at outside corner. I think you would trade Stevenson. Smith would be your third outside guy, and you'd go from there. So I think Tyreek would likely be gone. What are you getting for Tyreek in a trade? I don't know, like a fourth-round pick maybe. I'm not sure. I don't think the value would be super high based on how last year went. Again, that's why I'd rather get a player at a different position. But I really like Will Johnson. And the value, I think out of all these guys we're talking about here, the value at 10, just forget team need, is probably the best among these prospects we're talking about here. Okay, Kelvin Banks Jr. He seems to be polarizing. His tape is kind of interesting. We'll talk about it more in a second. We'll break it down in a second. I got to pay some bills here, though. Shout out to Game Time, the official ticketing sponsor of Chicago Bears now is Game Time. And listen, there is so much to do out in the world. If you want to go check out a baseball game, Cubs, White Sox, plenty of games to go. Just got underway. If you want to go to Wrigley, if you want to go to Guaranteed Rate Field, a lot of available seats for the White Sox. You can get really good prices right now. They got a game coming up they got a series coming up with the Red Sox with awesome tickets available. How about this? AC/DC coming to Chicago in May. I mean, if you're a throwback from the 80s, my dad would love this. AC/DC is one of his favorite musical groups of all time. I'm going to have to get him some tickets without him knowing. A little surprise gift for him late in May. I believe it's Soldier Field if you want to get tickets for that. The point is, there's no better ticketing app out there. Game Time is the place to go, as they are our ticketing sponsor here. I've been using them for a couple of years. What they really specialize in is last-minute tickets. You know, if you're a spur-of-the-moment type of person, oh, hey, the Cubs play at 1:20 this Friday like they always do. It's 10 a.m. Oh, let's see what Game Time's got. A lot of times those ticketing prices will go down closer to the start time because they want to put butts in seats. So take advantage of that. Game Time picks will highlight the best deals in the venue available. Plenty of other benefits, including all-in price and views from the seats, Game Time ticket coverage, which is the best and most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Don't wait any longer. Download Game Time today. Use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase only. That's code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time right now. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So back to Kelvin Banks. I think this is where PFF can lose people sometimes. His PFF grades are off the charts. But when I watch him versus Will Campbell, like Will Campbell is much more technically sound. Obviously, we've discussed the issues with Campbell, the arm length and all of that. Like Kelvin Banks too often ends up on the ground. I don't know if it's a balance issue when he gets knocked off his spot. I don't know if it's a footwork problem. I don't know if it's an anchor problem. I feel like he anchors pretty well, especially compared to like a Braxton Jones. But there is a lot to work with. The physical tools are there. Those are definitely better than what Will Campbell has, or even Armin Mimbu. He's almost 6'6". Mimbu's 6'4.5". And I do think he could be a long-term option at left tackle. So, again, I'd be okay with it at 10. I think he's more of like a 15 to 20 player in this draft. But this is one of those drafts where you get beyond the blue chippers. you're probably overpicking if you're picking in this 10 to 14 range if the top 7 or 8 players are gone. So wouldn't mind it. Again, kind of like Hampton, I'd rather trade down and end up with him, but in a worst case scenario, it's not a disaster. Okay, Malaki Starks, the safety out of Georgia. I think he's the best pure safety in this draft. Not the best athlete, but a really instinctive player, a good tackler. He could play both spots, in my opinion, which is valuable in a Dennis Allen defense. We've talked about how the future of both Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker in Chicago is murky at best. Brisker with the concussion issues, Byard being 32 years old. Next year he'd be 33. So, they'll play this year out before considering bringing him back. I like Elijah Hicks. I like Jonathan Owens as pure backups, but I don't think either of them are a starter in the future. I think you need to add somebody at some point, someone that you think, even if they're not a starter this year, they're probably a starter in 2026. Starks is definitely that. He would push to start as a rookie, and if you take him, I wonder if you would try to dangle Brisker in a trade. I'm not sure a team would trade for him given his concussion problem, but Starks is a guy who I really, really like. Again, don't love it at 10. That's kind of the theme here, but at a position that you sneakily need, and if your top targets are gone, he's a pretty good player, a top 20 player in this draft. All right, subscribe to the channel. We got videos all year long, whether it's in-season content, off-season content, breaking news, trade rumors, draft coverage, free agency, just different segments like this. Subscribe today. We're going to continue to bring you guys daily videos. All right, Tetairoa McMillan. Kind of like Will Johnson, this is kind of a BPA situation. One of the best players available, if not the best. I'm a big T-Mac guy. I know there's some draft fatigue has hit him. Like all of a sudden, like, oh, you could slide to 20. And I'm like, I don't really get it. I think he's the best receiver in the draft, if you're not counting Travis Hunter. He is smooth. He is fluid for how big he is. He's a good route runner. Great hands, too. Like, I don't know what has happened with the evaluation of him. Like, he ran a 4.52, and now the people are off T-Mac. I don't really get it. He's excellent. I just don't love going receiver in round 1 2 straight years. It's kind of like, are you putting too much resources into that position? Because you've paid DJ Moore $25+ million per year. You spent a top 10 pick on Rome Odunze. This would be another top 10 pick on T-Mac. Like, to me, if you make this move, you're probably trading DJ or Rome a year from now, depending on how this year goes. Now, you don't have to do that, but teams balance allocation of resources all the time. So I wouldn't hate it. It would supercharge your wide receiver room for this year, but long-term, I don't think it's a sustainable model to have more Odunze and McMillan in the same wide receiver room. I just don't think that's the best use of your resources. Okay. What is your biggest nightmare pick at number 10? None of those are my biggest nightmare, by the way. Like, I'd be okay with any of those scenarios. Again, it would kind of suck if the draft played out this way, but I could live with those scenarios. What I can't live with, crash out alert, if they take Shamar Stewart at number 10, you guys will see a crash out. I don't want to say unlike of which you've ever seen because the Commanders came last year, some others. But maybe for an off-season video, this would be the top of the list. I can't do Shamar Stewart at 10. I did a mock draft scenario where they took him at 21, and again, I don't even know if I would do that, but like I could see that scenario, right? Like you get a future first, you trade down. Okay, let's take a swing on the measurables guy in the back third of round 1. Okay, I can live with that. At 10, I don't care how dominant he was in the underwear Olympics. His only move is a bull rush, and that was before he shedded 25 pounds for the combine. Is he going to consistently bull rush offensive linemen in the NFL? Not consistently, I don't think. And even if he does it fairly consistently, he's got no other moves. 4.5 sacks in 3 years. That lack of production is not a good sign for someone who becomes a 10+ sack guy in the NFL. There's a lot of data that points to that. You want to take a swing on him at 25 in some trade down scenario, or certainly in the second round if he really slid, have at it. Dennis Allen prototype. I get it. But, man, if they take him at 10, I will be in absolute shambles on draft night, which none of us want. Although maybe you guys would get some laughs out of it, so there'd be a silver lining. Other options at 10, by the way, just to kind of circle the wagons here. Jalen Walker, don't think he's a great scheme fit, but I do think he's a good prospect. Josh Simmons, I think he, with the injury and a report coming out of character question marks, again, I can't speak to that. Don't love it at 10, but I could see them considering that. Walter Nolan, I think he's a really good player, but there's been some whispers about his character and attitude. Same with James Pierce. Jahad Campbell, I think like with Jalen Walker, they're both really good 3-4 fits. How would the Bears use them in a 4-3? I'm not sure, but they could certainly use an off-ball linebacker, and Campbell could give you some snaps at edge as well. Jahdae Barron, where's he playing for you? Some would argue nickel's his best position. Well, they're going to extend Kyler Gordon, so is he an outside corner? Do you move him to free safety? I'm not sure. Kenneth Grant, really good player. I think it's rich at 10, though. Same with Michael Williams, who I like better than Shamar Stewart, but I don't like him at 10. Colston Loveland, I think 10's too early, but he is a good prospect. And then Derek Harmon, I think he's got a chance to be really good, but 10 feels a little rich for him as well. The problem with Nolan and Harmon is they have huge potential as pass rushers, but they're better run defenders right now. Do you take that at 10? I'm not sure. I would like that later in the first round. All right, there you go. The worst case scenario for the Bears on draft night. There's kind of an outline and analysis for you guys. Again, if we get 1,500 likes on today's show, we will do a best case scenario draft night for the Bears. So be on the lookout for that. Like the video to make it happen, and we'll do it.